You didn't really need it anyway, my father said, his voice casual through the speaker of my phone, as if he hadn't just admitted to stealing my entire college fund. What's done is done. No point getting upset about it now. My name is Elena Wright, and at 25, I stood frozen in my cramped London apartment, staring at the rain-streaked window while my father calmly explained why he had emptied the account meant to pay for my final year of university. The fund I had built myself. Through scholarships. Through part-time jobs. Through years of careful saving since high school. How much is left? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady even as my hands trembled. There was a brief pause on the line. Nothing, he replied lightly. It's all gone, sweetheart. I had some debts to clear up. But don't worry, you're smart. You'll figure something out. Figure something out. As if I had a choice. As if he hadn't just stolen 4 years of my hard work while I was studying abroad, powerless to stop him, because he had remained a co-signer on the account I'd opened at 17. I see, I said quietly. Well, good luck with that. That's my girl, he said, mistaking my calm for acceptance. Always practical. Just like your old man. Listen, I've got to run, meeting some friends for drinks. We'll talk soon. Drinks. With my money. With my future. The call ended. I lowered myself into the chair, at my tiny desk overlooking the narrow London street I'd fallen in love with during my semester abroad. 3 months. I had 3 months before I was supposed to return home. 3 months to salvage my senior year, after my own father had pulled the ground out from beneath me. My phone buzzed again. A text. Don't mention this to your mom or your grandmother. No need to worry them. Of course. Just like he hadn't wanted them to know about his gambling debts. His failed business schemes. His habit of borrowing money he never repaid. I opened my laptop and started a list. 1. Documentation. Bank statements. Proof of deposits. Scholarship records. 2. Research. Legal resources. Financial aid. Emergency funding. 3. Income. Part-time work. Anything flexible. My father had always underestimated me. Treated me like his backup plan. Good thing you're pretty, he used to say when I brought home straight A's, as if my achievements mattered less than my appearance. You can always marry rich if college doesn't work out. But I hadn't worked this hard, hadn't come this far, to let him destroy my future. He thought I'd accepted his theft because I stayed calm. He had no idea that practical was exactly what he should fear. Over the next week, I uncovered the full extent of his betrayal. The account had held just over $42,000, money earned through scholarships, summer jobs, and disciplined budgeting. He had drained it in small transfers over the past month, each one carefully timed to avoid triggering alerts. One evening, my roommate Clara found me surrounded by bank statements. "Your father did what?" she gasped. "Can't you report him for theft?" "His name was still on the account," I said quietly. "Legally, he had access. I should have known. I should have remembered how he'd borrowed my birthday money as a child. How he'd once tried to convince me to take out loans in my own name, promising he'd help repay them." My phone kept buzzing. "You worry too much. Maybe this is a sign you should take a break from school. I know someone who could get you into modeling, better money than that degree." Every message made one thing painfully clear: he didn't value my education, my independence, or my future. To him, I was just another resource. Another safety net. And I was done being one. I stopped responding to my father's messages and started making calls instead. The university's financial aid office was first. I explained the situation carefully, sticking to facts, not emotions. My voice stayed steady even when my chest felt tight. They listened, really listened, and told me there might be emergency options, but I'd need documentation. Legal aid services came next. Then student support. Then the international office. Every call added a small piece to the puzzle, a sense that while my father had stolen my money, he hadn't stolen every option. That afternoon, I called my grandmother, Margaret. She had always believed in my education more fiercely than anyone else. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to ask general questions about financial protections and co-signed accounts. She immediately sensed something was wrong. "Elena," she said slowly, "are you safe?" "Yes," I replied. "I just might need advice soon." "I'm here," she said without hesitation. "Whenever you're ready." My father's next call came while I was sitting in a lecture hall, pretending to take notes while my thoughts raced. "Hey, princess," he said brightly. "Quick question." I closed my eyes. "You wouldn't happen to have any other savings accounts, would you? You've always been good with money." The entitlement in his voice made my stomach turn, but I forced a light tone. "Why do you ask?" "Oh, no reason," he chuckled. "Just thinking about your future. You know how dads are. Thinking about my future. Like he had when he emptied my college fund. Like he had when he tried to convince me studying abroad was selfish. Like he had when he told me my degree was optional." "Sorry, Dad," I said. "I'm in class. Talk later." I hung up and added another item to my list: 4. Secure everything. Close any remaining accounts he might know about. Move funds to a new bank. No co-signers. Ever again. That evening, an email appeared from my grandmother. "I spoke to your father today. He seemed nervous when I asked about your college fund. Is everything all right?" I stared at the screen, then smiled, slowly, grimly. "Can we talk?" I typed back. "There's something you should know." Her response came within minutes. "Call me now." The video call included my grandmother, my mother Helen, and my Aunt Rachel, who happened to be a lawyer. My father was notably absent. Once I started, the words poured out. The drained account. The transfers. The messages. The casual way he'd dismissed my future. My mother's hands shook as she read the screenshots. "I had no idea," she whispered. "He told me you wanted to take a break from school. That you were thinking of coming home." Of course he had. My aunt leaned forward, sharp-eyed. "Have you documented everything?" "Yes," I said. "Every withdrawal. Every text. Every call." "Good," she nodded. "The account access complicates things legally, but these messages. These promises to repay. They give us leverage." My grandmother's face hardened in a way I recognized from childhood, the look she got when someone crossed a line they couldn't uncross. "That man," she said coldly, "has gone too far." The plan came together quickly. My grandmother would confront him first, make it clear the family knew. My aunt would draft a formal demand letter outlining repayment options. And my mother would finally file for the divorce she'd been delaying for years. "He's always underestimated you," my grandmother said to me gently. "Treated you like an extension of himself. It's time he learns who you really are." Later that night, my father called again. Your grandmother seemed upset today, he said carefully. You didn't tell her anything, did you? I smiled, though he couldn't see it. About what, Dad? I asked. The money you stole. Or the future you tried to derail. Silence. Then, Elena, don't be dramatic. Don't call me, I said calmly. From now on, everything goes through Aunt Rachel. His voice sharpened. Why would your aunt need to be involved? Because she's a lawyer, I replied. And you're about to need one. I hung up before he could respond. For the first time since the call in my apartment, I felt something other than shock. I felt ready. My father's reaction followed a familiar pattern. First came denial. You're blowing this out of proportion, he texted. It was just money. Family matters more than money. Then came anger. How dare you involve outsiders? You're humiliating me. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. Finally, desperation. You know I'll pay you back. You don't need to do this. We can handle this privately. I didn't respond. I forwarded every message to Aunt Rachel instead. She told me to let him talk, let him contradict himself, let him reveal exactly who he was. He did not disappoint. A week later, he showed up at my grandmother Margaret's house, where I was staying briefly before flying back to London. She didn't let him past the front porch. How dare you, she said loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Stealing your daughter's college fund. Have you no shame? Mother, please, he hissed. Lower your voice. This is a family matter. Exactly, she snapped. And you betrayed your family. Leave before I call the police. He left, but the messages didn't stop. Your grandmother has turned you against me. I'm your father. You owe me respect. I raised you. I thought about what he'd actually given me. The discouragement. The borrowed money never returned. The way he treated my success as something he could cash in on whenever he wanted. Aunt Rachel's demand letter arrived at his house by certified mail 2 days later. Inside was a detailed breakdown of every dollar he'd taken, complete with dates, transfers, and totals, plus repayment options, and clear legal consequences if he refused. You can't sue your own father, he shouted when he called. Watch me, I replied, then hung up. The fallout spread quickly. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, expressing shock and disgust. His sister, Aunt Patricia, called me in tears. He did this to my kids too, she admitted. Borrowed money from their birthday cards. Promised to replace it. Never did. My mother filed for divorce soon after. During the first hearing, my father's pattern of financial abuse came to light. You emptied your daughter's college fund to pay gambling debts, the judge asked, incredulous. I was going to pay it back, my father muttered. With what income, the judge asked. According to these records, you haven't held steady employment in 3 years. His carefully crafted image of the charming, generous father began to collapse. Every attempt to defend himself only exposed more lies. Back in London, the university's financial aid office stepped in once they fully understood the situation. Emergency funding. A revised payment plan. Extensions where possible. My grandmother insisted on helping too. Unlike your father, she said firmly, I understand the value of education, and of keeping promises. Meanwhile, my father claimed he was broke. Then Aunt Rachel discovered the new car. The vacation photos on social media. The country club membership he somehow still maintained. He's not poor, she said flatly. He's hiding assets. Badly. His messages grew more frantic. You're ruining my life. My own daughter turning against me. I raised you better than this. The loving father mask slipped completely, revealing the manipulator underneath. The final straw came when he tried to turn my younger cousins against me, telling them I was trying to bankrupt him out of spite. Instead, they sent me screenshots. Remember when Uncle David told us our college funds were safe with him, my cousin Lucas wrote. Guess we know what that meant. Aunt Rachel helped them secure their own accounts before he could strike again. Piece by piece, his pattern of financial abuse was exposed, one family member at a time. During my mother's divorce proceedings, more revelations surfaced. Hidden accounts. Loans taken out in her name. An attempt to remortgage their house without her knowledge. He's been treating the entire family like his personal ATM, my mother realized, stunned. And we had all helped him by staying silent. My grandmother called another family meeting, again, without him. Stories poured out. Loans never repaid. Promises broken. Trust destroyed. He's always counted on family loyalty to protect him from consequences, Aunt Rachel said quietly. It's time we show him that loyalty goes both ways. As the meeting ended, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about my stolen college fund anymore. It was about finally stopping him. The consequences hit my father like a line of falling dominoes. First came the divorce. My mother's attorney uncovered the hidden accounts Aunt Rachel had suspected all along. The discovery led to a far larger settlement than my father had anticipated, dismantling the illusion that he was broke and powerless. Then came the repayment agreement. Under mounting legal pressure, he agreed to a structured repayment plan for the money he had taken from me, complete with interest. Monthly payments. No delays. No excuses. For the first time in his life, charm didn't work. His reputation within the family collapsed next. Stories surfaced from every direction, elderly relatives he'd borrowed from, cousins he'd pressured to co-sign loans, friends who'd invested in his business ventures, and never saw returns. A Ponzi scheme in everything but name, Aunt Rachel muttered as she added more documents to her growing file. My father's texts shifted again, this time from anger to pleading. I'm still your father. Everyone makes mistakes. What kind of daughter does this to her dad? What will people think of you? I recognized the pattern immediately. Guilt. Shame. Fear. It didn't work anymore. Through my grandmother's connections, I secured a part-time job that fit around my final year of studies. My professors, once they understood what had happened, helped me arrange a flexible schedule. Each small win felt like reclaiming something he'd tried to take. The family's support surprised me. Cousins shared their own stories of financial manipulation. Aunts and uncles who had once excused his behavior now stood firmly against it. Even distant relatives reached out to say, "We believe you." One evening, my grandmother told me, "Your father called today. Tried to convince me to talk you out of the repayment plan. Said you're tearing the family apart." "What did you tell him?" I asked. "That he destroyed the family the moment he stole from his own daughter. My father's last desperate attempt at control came on my graduation day. Uninvited. Unwelcome. Undeterred. He arrived early, smiling broadly, shaking hands, loudly playing the role of proud father. 'That's my girl,' he announced to anyone within earshot. 'Gets her business sense from me.' Aunt Rachel had him escorted out before the ceremony began. 'Your success belongs to you,' she told me afterward. He doesn't get to claim credit for what he tried to prevent. A year after the confrontation, my father's carefully constructed world had unraveled completely. Former friends demanded answers about missing investments. Relatives he'd borrowed from pursued legal action. His social circle shrank rapidly as the truth spread. My graduation party, hosted by my grandmother, became something more than a celebration of academic achievement. It was a celebration of independence. Friends and family gathered, many sharing their own stories of standing up to manipulative parents. During the party, my mother pulled me aside. "Your father called me yesterday," she said quietly. "Asked if I'd talk to you about dropping the repayment plan. Said he's learned his lesson." "Has he?" I asked. She sighed. "No. He's learned he can't manipulate you anymore. The repayment plan Aunt Rachel negotiated was strict. Payments came directly from his paycheck. Yes, he finally had to get a real job. His old lifestyle vanished overnight. No more borrowing. No more pretending. No one would lend him money anymore. It's not fair," he complained in his last email to me. "I'm your father. You're supposed to love me unconditionally." "Love isn't a blank check," I replied, my final direct message to him. "Trust is what makes family possible." My career began to take off soon after. I secured a position at a respected firm in London, something I'd once thought impossible. Every achievement felt sweeter knowing it was built entirely on my own terms. My grandmother became my strongest ally. Her fierce, unwavering support stood in stark contrast to my father's self-serving version of love. "He called again," she told me one Sunday over dinner. "Wanted to know if you'd gotten the London job. Said he'd love to visit once you're settled." "To visit?" I asked dryly, "or to ask for money?" She smiled. "Both, probably." I told him you're done funding his lifestyle. The family dynamics shifted permanently. Those who had once enabled him now warned each other about his tactics. Watching his world shrink as mine expanded, I felt no triumph, only clarity. His greatest punishment wasn't the repayment plan. It was losing access to me. Life in London slowly began to feel like something solid, something earned. My new flat was small but bright, paid for entirely with my own salary. Every piece of furniture had been chosen by me, every decision made without asking permission or fearing interference. For the first time, my life felt untangled from my father's influence. That didn't stop him from trying. The first attempt came in the form of a birthday card, the first he'd sent in years. Inside was a carefully crafted message about how proud he was of our achievements. "Did you notice how he signed it?" my mother asked when she called. "Love, Dad. Your biggest supporter." The audacity made me laugh. Next came social media. Old family photos appeared on his profile, paired with captions about how he'd always encouraged my dreams, how he'd sacrificed everything for my success. Each post painted him as the devoted father, quietly rewriting history. Aunt Rachel didn't hesitate. "He's constructing a narrative," she explained. "And narratives can be dangerous." She helped me draft a cease and desist letter when his posts escalated, especially when he started implying he'd financially supported my education. "He's trying to erase the paper trail," she said. "Good thing we kept it." His response was predictable. More messages about family loyalty. More hints about financial struggles. More attempts to guilt me into softening. None of it worked. Through family gossip, I learned about his latest schemes. He'd started telling people he had connections in London, that he could help their children find opportunities abroad. Every lie circled back to me. Your father says you're hiring at your firm, a family friend messaged. He offered to put in a good word for my daughter, for a small consulting fee. I replied immediately, explaining the truth. He had no connection to my firm. No influence. No right to charge anyone for imaginary favors. Each correction felt like placing another brick between his lies and my reality. When my grandmother visited London, her first time abroad at 70, everything came into focus. Watching her take in my life, my career, my independence made me realize how far I'd come. You know what makes me proudest, she said over dinner at my favorite neighborhood pub. Not what you achieved, but how you achieved it. You didn't let him make you bitter. You just got stronger. That night, another message arrived from my father. Heard your mom's visiting. Flat must be cramped. I know some good hotels if you need help with the expense. I showed it to my grandmother. We both laughed. The same tactics. Transparent now. Should I respond? I asked. She raised her glass. Darling, your success is the only response he needs. 2 years after the confrontation, the repayment plan was still in force. Every monthly payment was a reminder that accountability existed, even for him. He tried repeatedly to reduce or delay payments. Each attempt failed under Aunt Rachel's legal oversight. During a family gathering back home, my cousin Lucas shared his own victory. I graduated debt-free, he said proudly. My college funds locked in an account Uncle David can't touch. He laughed. You know what he said? That I should thank you for overreacting. Claimed your drama taught him an important lesson. Did it? I asked. Aunt Rachel smirked. He learned not to target family members with good lawyers. My career continued to climb. I was promoted to a senior role, my reputation built on the same discipline and determination that had carried me through the worst period of my life. Then came his Christmas card. Thick. Overly cheerful. Full of subtle hints about financial hardship. Still paying for one mistake, he'd written. When will you let it go? I pinned it to my bulletin board, right beside my degree and promotion letter. Reminders of how far I'd come. At the firm's annual charity gala, I was asked to speak about persistence and overcoming obstacles. I didn't mention my father by name. I didn't need to. I talked about the moment I learned my college fund was gone, not as betrayal, but as a turning point. Sometimes, I told the audience, the people who should support you become the obstacles you must overcome. Their doubt becomes your fuel. The speech was shared online. He saw it. My father didn't contact me directly after the speech. Instead, his reaction came through my grandmother. He says you're still angry, she told me during one of our Sunday calls. Claims you're using his mistake to get attention. My grandmother's response to him had been immediate. She isn't angry, she said calmly. She's successful. There's a difference. The last payment from my father arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. The final installment of the money he'd stolen, paid in full, down to the last cent of interest. Attached was a short note. Now can we be family again? I filed the receipt with the rest of my documentation. Not because I needed it anymore, but because it represented something important. Proof. Closure. Distance. My mother, now happily remarried, put it best when we spoke later that week. He thought taking your money would keep you dependent on him, she said. Instead, it set you free. She was right. Every attempt he'd made to control me had pushed me further toward independence. My career flourished. The firm didn't just offer me a job, it offered me a future. One I'd built despite his efforts to derail it. My flat became a symbol of that future. Paid for with my own earnings. Decorated to my taste. Free of any influence he could claim. His attempts to maintain contact grew more transparent. First came another birthday card. Then a message about how proud he was of my professional growth. Then hints about visiting London. To visit, my mother asked gently, or to ask for money. We both knew the answer. Through family updates, I heard about his shrinking world. Fewer friends. Fewer opportunities. More people wary of his promises. His sister, Aunt Patricia, started a family group chat specifically to track his attempts at manipulation. He tried to convince my son to co-sign a car loan, she reported one afternoon. Said it would help build his credit. It sounded painfully familiar. He tried the same thing with me at 18, attempting to saddle me with debt before I'd even started college. Back then, my grandmother had intercepted the paperwork and warned me about predatory practices, even when they came from family. Now, watching his influence weaken as mine grew, I felt no triumph. Only validation. Each forced payment. Each failed scheme. Each exposed lie confirmed what I'd always known, he was capable of doing the right thing. He just never thought he had to. My success became its own protection. The more I achieved, the less power he held over my life. The degree he'd tried to derail now hung framed on my wall. Each accomplishment beneath it served as a reminder, his greatest mistake wasn't stealing my money. It was underestimating my resolve. My return to London after visiting home marked the start of a new chapter. The firm promoted me again, this time to a leadership role. I was trusted. Respected. Valued. My grandmother visited once more, staying long enough to see my routine, my work, my life. You built this, she said softly as we walked through the city. All of it. That evening, another message from my father arrived. Heard you're doing well. Thought maybe I could visit sometime. I'd love to see how far you've come. I stared at the screen for a long moment before setting the phone down. No response felt necessary. Because some doors, once closed, are meant to stay that way. The family dynamics never returned to what they had been before, and that was a good thing. Where silence and excuses once protected my father, there was now honesty. Boundaries. Accountability. Relatives who had once enabled his behavior now shared warnings instead of sympathy. He still tried, of course. Every few months, a new story surfaced. A business idea. An investment opportunity. A claim that he had connections that could open doors for someone else's child. Each attempt failed faster than the last. People asked questions now. People verified. One afternoon, a message arrived from a distant cousin. Your father says you're hiring at your firm, she wrote. He offered to help my son get an interview, for a fee. I replied with the truth. Again. He had no involvement in my career. No authority. No influence. Each correction weakened the myth he was desperate to preserve. My grandmother watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He's finally learning, she said one evening. Not how to be better, but how little power he has left. At a small family gathering back home, my cousin Lucas pulled me aside. You know what Uncle David said when I graduated, he laughed. That I should thank you. Said your overreaction taught him an important lesson. And did it? I asked. Lucas grinned. He learned not to mess with people who document everything. Aunt Rachel overheard and added dryly, and who have good legal representation. My career continued to thrive. The firm asked me to mentor junior associates, many of them first-generation students navigating pressure from families who didn't understand their ambitions. I never shared all the details of my story, but I shared enough. Sometimes, I told them, the people who should protect you don't. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you learn how to protect yourself. The charity speech that had once unsettled my father became something more. I was invited to speak again, this time about resilience and financial independence. I spoke about preparation, documentation, knowing your worth. I spoke about walking away from guilt that wasn't yours to carry. My father heard about that speech too. His reaction came through my mother. He says you've turned everyone against him, she told me quietly. That you're punishing him forever for one mistake. My mother's voice was calm when she replied to him. You're facing consequences, she said. That's not the same thing. The final shift came the day I stopped checking for his name in family updates. Not out of anger. Out of indifference. He still sent cards sometimes. Messages carefully worded to sound supportive, each one hinting at reconciliation without accountability. I didn't respond. Because peace didn't require his understanding. 2 years after the last repayment, my life felt settled in a way I'd never known before. My work challenged me. My home reflected me. My relationships were built on mutual respect instead of obligation. My graduation photo still hung in my hallway, my grandmother and mother on either side of me, smiling with a pride that had never been conditional. During one of our weekly calls, my grandmother said something that stayed with me. He thought stealing your money would keep you tied to him, she said. But it revealed who he really was, and who you really are. She was right. Every attempt he'd made to control me had sharpened my independence. Every obstacle he'd placed in my path had forced me to grow stronger. His greatest loss wasn't the money he had to repay. It was the future relationship he could have had, if he'd chosen honesty instead of entitlement. On the anniversary of my graduation, I stood in my London flat, looking out at the city that had become home. The degree on my wall wasn't just proof of education. It was proof of survival. Proof of choice. Proof that even when the people meant to support you become your greatest challenge, you can still build a life that belongs entirely to you. My father once believed my success was something he could claim. In the end, it became the one thing he could never touch. And that was enough.